Had the steel wheels on it.
Wow.
It was a Fordson, but I don't know what this tractor is. Does it tell? I don't think it tells us. This is just another picture of another pump. And this is a pump that they had, that my great grandmother had on her sink. You know, like Susan's sink is just one big sink. Well, this is what my great grandmother's was. And this pump was at the end of the sink. You didn't turn a faucet on.
The pump to
You
get
had to
it
pump to get your water.
They have the same thing at Knott's set up for like a horse
Yes.
trough. And we went with Divine, and I told him, I said, if you pump fast enough, you'll overflow it. But it's just sucking it back out of the trough. And he's just going and going and going. Oh, it was crazy. It was funny.
And this is an old car, like what my father had at one point in his life. So I just needed some pictures, so those are pictures I had up. But I start out with my great-grandmother's life. And here I've got a note that says I need a copy of my great-grandmother. I've got that in Grandpa. I find pictures of a pump and an old phone, so I found those. But anyway, I've got like, what have I written here? I got 46 pages.
All the way up to page 46.
All the way up to page 46. And it starts with my great grandmother was Jessie Williams. She was a small lady and full of energy. She lives in Stanton, Michigan, out of the outskirts of town. She lived by herself. She had been widowed since 1919. Her husband had served in the Civil War. We would go and visit her on some Sunday afternoons. While my parents visited with my grandmother, my sister, Fern, and I would entertain ourselves by getting drinks of water from the pump at the end of her sink in the kitchen. It was so much fun for us because we had to prime the pump, before we could pump the water. So you poured water in the top right here. She always kept some water on the counter, poured it, and then you could pump the pump, and then the water would come out here. I lost my spot. Okay, it was so much fun for us because you had to prime the pump before you could pump the water. Grandma had a fun phone, and we used to listen to people talking. The phone was a large box on the wall, and the receiver had a long cord with the receiver at the end. For my birthday one year, Grandma Williams gave me my first Bible. I think I still have it, but I don't know where I've got it stored. Grandma had lots of flowers around her house, and Fern and I had fun smelling them. Grandma was living with her grandson, Clifton Williams, at age 97. She had 7 children. They were Ted, Pat, Claude, Agnes, Clara, Robert, and Manood. Clara was my father's mother. Great-Grandma Williams lived to be 100 years old, and she was still collecting a check from the United States government when she passed, for her husband had served in the Civil War. Her birthday was February the 14th. I don't know what year she was born, but I think around 1864. I just looked up the genealogy done by my Aunt Barbara's husband, Robert Klein, and learned that my great-grandmother was married to George Willett Williams, and that they had 9 children. Maud was born in 1882, Clyde in 1885, Clarence in 1887, Katie in 1889, Clara May in 1891, Ted in 1894, Robert in 1998. Archie in 1990 and Agnes in 1904. Great-grandmother passed away in 1964. My grandmother, Clara May Williams Fisher Hogle, was the mother of my father, William Vern Fisher. My grandparents divorced around 1924. They had 5 children. William, which was my father, born in 1908, Marguerite in 1910, Marie in 1912, Wava in 1914, and Irvin in 1918. In 1926, Grandma married Grandpa Hogle, my step-grandfather. I don't have this written down, but my one sister, Clara, told me how my grandparents met. Grandpa Hogle, Ralph Hogle, came to court Clara's daughter. And Clara's daughter did not want anything to do with him. But he wound up courting my grandmother. Grandma was born on November 13th, 1891. She was raised on a farm in Stanton, Michigan. She was tall and large-boned, a very strong lady, and a very hard worker. In my younger years, I remember she washed other people's clothes and then ironed them to help earn money for the family. She did this Monday through Friday. She cleaned her house every Saturday. It was always spotless. She had this living room that no one was allowed to sit in, only on Sundays. But yet, Grandma cleaned that room every Saturday, and it didn't need it at all. In the evening, she would crochet beautiful doll skirts. These dolls she stood in the middle of her bed. She also crocheted all kinds of doilies to place on furniture. She also sold these to earn money. My grandparents had a daughter born in September 8, 1930. She was 6 years older than me. They named her Barbara Jean. Barbara, Fern, and I often played together on Sunday afternoons after church. My parents would go to their house or they would come to our house. We spent many hours together. Aunt Barbara had a playhouse in the backyard, and we played with our dolls there. Grandpa cleaned out the basement of their house for us to play grocery store. We saved all the boxes and cans from our mother's kitchens, and we set up a grocery store. We even had a play cash register and play money. We spent hours in the basement playing grocery store. It was a good place to be in the summer, as it was always cool. I graduated from the 6th grade, and Barbara Jean still was in school, so I went one day and visited her classes. It was great fun going from class to class, and I couldn't wait till I could do that too. However, the night before, Barbara told her mom that she needed to bake chocolate chip cookies for home ec the next day. So Grandma gave us money, and we walked to the store and got the ingredients. We came home and made the cookies. Guess what we did? We ate them while we were going from class to class the next day. Barbara Jean told a fib. She did not have to make these cookies for home ec. I never told Grandma what we did. I didn't want to snitch on my Aunt Barbara. In the summertime, Fern would go and stay overnight with Barbara, and I would go the next night. It was fun to sleep with Barbara, for she slept on a feather bed. We would sink down, and it was so soft. Grandma was a good cook, and she always had dessert. Fern loved to wash Grandma's dishes. I thought she was a little nuts. She said it was fun to wash someone's dishes because they were so pretty. While I was growing up, I had a pet canary. and I named him Dickie. My Aunt Wava raised canaries, and she gave one to me. We all enjoyed Dickie because he was a good singer. Grandma married William Harris Fisher in 1907. She was just 16 years old. I never saw or knew him because when I was born, my grandpa was married to Ralph Hogel. He was a good grandfather. He was always smiling and had a twinkle in his eye. Every summer we had a family reunion at the lake in Michigan. I and my sisters and cousins always went swimming. It was the only time we got to get in the water all summer long. Grandpa always went to the dairy and he bought a large container of ice cream. It must have held 10 gallons, so we kids ate ice cream all afternoon. So Grandpa made a great hit with us kids. Grandpa was born February the 10th, 1896. He lived his life in Greenville, Belding, and in Muir. He was a retired employee of Gibson's. They made refrigerators and cooking stoves, and during World War II, they made airplane parts. Grandma passed away on July the 6th, 1977. Grandpa sold his farm when Grandma passed so as to pay for all of her medical bills, but he kept a lease on the farmhouse where he lived until he passed in February of 1984. My grandmother, Anna Ackerman Whitney, was the mother of my mother, Macy Winifred Whitney Fisher. She was short and stout. She was blind in one eye. She was a very kind person. She lived her life always doing for others. She was married to George Whitney. He was of the bloodline from Eli Whitney, who invented the cotton gin. George's wife had passed away and left him with a son, Ernest. Anna took on the task of raising Ernest. She had a second son named Clifford, and then a daughter named Macy, my mother. When Anna was in the 3rd grade, her parents took her out of school so that she could care for her younger brothers and sisters, also help with the cooking and the housework, and she never learned how to read. When my parents married, Grandma lived with us. It was during the Depression. She received a check from our government. I think it was about $50 a month, and she gave this to my parents. Later on, she would stay with elderly ladies and care for them until they passed and go on to live with another lady. Grandma's husband had passed away a few years before, so this was how she supported herself. In between jobs, she would stay with us. These were happy times for Fern and I, for we loved her dearly. She would sit and rock us, one on each knee, and she would whisper into our ears. She would didn't say anything, but she would go, psst, psst, psst. This would tickle us and make us laugh. She would help Mom in the kitchen, mixing the yellow coloring into the margarine with her hand. When she finished, Fern and I would lick her fingers. We didn't have yellow margarine then, it was white. So it had this little round thing in it, and you cracked that and it had a liquid, and it was yellow, yellow coloring. So she would mix it with her hand and mix the coloring in so it turned it yellow. It just looked more appetizing.
I guess, yeah, that makes sense. I don't think about stuff like that.
But anyway, then we would stand and lick her fingers. Because she never learned to read, I would sit hours on her lap trying to teach her to read. She was very patient with me. She told Fern that she was an Indian giver because Fern had given me some of